Okay, we're in Genesis 45 today. This is a really exciting chapter because Joseph finally reveals himself to his brothers. So let's just read the chapter and then I'll come back and give you some things to think about as it relates to forgiveness. So it says in verse number 1, then he commanded the steward of the house. That's not the right chapter. How about we do the right chapter? How about we do 45, where I said we were going to go? Then Joseph could not control himself before all those who stood by him. He cried, "Make everyone go out from me." So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. So he's put his brothers through all these series of tests. This last test really validates that his brothers are changed people. So when he realizes that these are different guys, he can't contain himself anymore, and he has to tell him who he is. And it says in verse number 2, he wept aloud so that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" That's the one question that he's not for sure about. He knows Benjamin's still alive because Benjamin came with his brothers to Egypt, but he doesn't know if dad's alive. And so that's the first question he asks after he makes the statement, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed at his presence. He literally made them speechless. And you can imagine, like, what? This is who? You know, and now maybe they're starting to put two and two together. Now it makes sense. You put us in family order. You actually do kind of look like him 20 years ago. I can see now that this is Joseph. So Joseph said to his brothers, because they probably, once he said this, they probably took a step back and are like, oh, he's going to kill us now. So Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near to me, please." And they came near, and he said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh and lord of all his house and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not tarry. You shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near to me. You and your children's children, and your flocks, your herds, and all that you have. There I will provide for you, for there are yet 5 years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have do not come to poverty. And now your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see, that it is my mouth that speaks to you. You must tell my father of all my honor in Egypt, and all that you have seen, and of all that you have seen. Hurry and bring my father down here.' Then he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. And he kissed all his brothers and wept upon them. After this, his brothers talked with him." So this is all the emotions come out. Verse 16, "When the report was heard in Pharaoh's house, Joseph's brothers have come. It pleased Pharaoh and his servants. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, 'Say to your brothers, do this, load your beast and go back to the land of Canaan. And take your father and your household and come to me. And I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you shall eat the fat of the land. And you, Joseph, are commanded to say, do this, take wagons from the land of Egypt for your little ones, for your wives, and bring your father and come. Have no concern for your goods, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours.'" In other words, don't pack up the tent, don't bring your stuff. Whatever you want is yours when you get here. Okay, that's a good gig, right? And that's coming from Pharaoh. That's not coming from Joseph. He's telling Joseph, you do this. You go get your dad, get your families, bring them back here. All that's available for you in Egypt is yours. Verse 21, "The sons of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them wagons according to the command of Pharaoh, and gave them provisions for the journey. To each and all of them he gave a change of clothes, but to Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver and 5 changes of clothes." They can't help but show favoritism, can they? "To his father he sent as follows, 10 donkeys loaded with the good things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, bread, and provision for his father on the journey. Then he sent his brothers away, and as they departed, he said to them, Do not quarrel on the way. I love that little statement right there. Can you guys just get along, get there, get dad back here? Please don't fight, okay? And he had good reason for saying that. Verse 25, so they went up out of Egypt and came to the land of Canaan to their father Jacob. And they told him, Joseph is still alive, and he is ruler over all the land of Egypt. Wouldn't you have loved to have been in the room when this happened? I hope that we can rent videotapes, maybe be on jump drives. We can watch stuff like this that has happened in real time and see this. And I know that we can read it, but man, it'd be awesome to see what happened when he said Joseph is still alive and he is ruler over all the land of Egypt. And his heart became numb, for he did not believe them. But when they told him all the words of Joseph, which he had said to them, and when he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of their father revived, and Israel said, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. Now, in this passage, what I believe is being taught here is we are given a visual of what real forgiveness looks like and the benefits of it if you really forgive. So I've titled the message today, The Case for Forgiveness. Now, before your defenses come up and you say, oh, another sermon on forgiveness, you're going to tell me to do stuff that's nearly impossible to do, which forgiveness is very, very hard. I would say it's beyond hard. I would say it's impossible to do. It's impossible to forgive. And that's why we have to have Christ's help to forgive. And this is not just a sermon to tell you that you need to go and forgive and good luck. But I want to show you a positive example of here's a guy who forgave over and over in his life. Now, the Bible doesn't specifically say it, but we know that he did because of his actions. And he has had terrible things happen to him. And whatever's happened to you, I know that there are many of you in this room that have had very bad things happen to you, but nobody's had what Joseph had happen to him. He was betrayed by his brothers. They were going to kill him, and then they thought, well, let's get some money for him. So they took him out of the pit. They sold him into slavery. He becomes a slave. He goes from his father's favorite son to a slave in Egypt. He works for a guy named Potiphar, and he does it for 11 years. And then in that 11th year, he's falsely accused by Potiphar's wife of sexual misconduct. He could have been killed, but instead he's thrown into prison. He sits in prison for a long time, and while he's in there, he interprets the two guys' dreams, the butler and the baker. And then when they get out of jail, he says, hey, please remember me when you leave. They forget him. So he sits in jail for a couple more years, and finally Pharaoh has a dream, and they remember, oh, there's this guy in prison who can interpret dreams, and they call him out, and then he gets to where he's the second in command in all of Egypt. He just didn't have to forgive one individual. He had to forgive a whole bunch of individuals. He had to forgive his father for how he raised him as the favored son, that this set him up for failure really with his brothers. He had to forgive his brothers for selling him into slavery, for betraying him and selling him into slavery. He had to forgive Potiphar's wife for falsely accusing him, and he had to forgive the butler and the baker for forgetting him. What we see in Genesis 45 is a picture of a man who he forgave, and these are the benefits of it. These are the positive implications of forgiving. So he forgave, and this is the benefits of forgiving. So this is not just a sermon about forgive, which that's obviously the case. Not telling you just to do something, but I'm showing you if you will forgive, then this is the benefits or the perks that come from it. So I want to point out 5 things, 5 passages or 5 truths or positives that will come if you actually will forgive. Number 1, forgiveness frees us to love. Number 1, forgiveness frees us to love. We know that Joseph forgave his brothers before they ever asked for it, which I don't even see where they ever asked for it. But we know that he forgave them because of how he reacted the first time they showed up. Remember, this is several chapters ago. The brothers show up. The last visual that Joseph has of his brothers is they're filled with rage. They're going to kill him. He's begging for his life. They're going to sell him into slavery. This is the last visual he has. So if he has not forgiven them, and if he's just been angry this whole 20 years, what do you think he would have done the first time they walked in the door? He'd be like, oh, it's payback time. But he doesn't do that, does he? He actually weeps. He weeps when he sees his family again, which means that he had forgiven them. They were wrong in what they did, and so they never asked for it, but yet he forgave them. And so when they showed back up, he's got to now figure, are these the same guys that sold me into slavery, or are they changed men? And that's what he does for the next few years, is he's trying to figure out if these guys are really changed or not. And so it was a sign that he had forgiven them, because now a relationship with them is possible again. Reconciliation and a relationship was possible because Joseph had forgiven them a long time ago. What happens to a lot of us is we have people that hurt us and then we write them off forever. When maybe God wants the relationship to be restored, but it's not restored because we have decided that they are dead to us. We don't forgive them. And then since we don't forgive them, then we live in the prison of unforgiveness, and it does not then free us to have a future relationship. Let's not hinder future reconciliation by refusing to forgive. Forgiveness is something that I need to do even if the person that hurts me never asks for forgiveness. Jesus is the perfect example of this. He's on the cross. There wasn't one person at the foot of the cross saying, sorry, we did this to you. But yet, what is one of the 7 statements that Jesus made? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So they never asked for it, but he forgave them. If someone wrongs you and they know it, oftentimes the person that wrongs you is the one that gives up on the relationship. Peter, for example. Remember, Peter is sitting around a fire when Jesus is on trial. He's been whipped, and he's in bad shape, and it doesn't look good for him, and it's not going to go well for him. And Jesus had already predicted just a few hours before that when I go to trial, when they take me in, you guys are all going to betray me. And remember, Peter was the big mouth that says, I'll tell you what, all these losers may, but I won't. And what happened? He's sitting around a fire, and some little girl says to him, hey, weren't you with that guy in there? And what did he say? Never seen the guy. First denial. So she's persistent. She's a woman. She's a persistent, right? No. You were with him. I've never seen the guy. And then that third time. No, you were with him. Remember, he cursed and said, I've never seen the man. And at that time, says the rooster crowed, and he remembered what Jesus had said to him in the upper room. So Peter thinks this relationship is over. So what does he do? He goes back to fishing. He says, whatever plan God had for me, I've blown it. But God wasn't done with Peter, was he? So he's out there fishing. Jesus shows up, and he restores him to ministry. So Jesus then was able to take the initiative. Peter didn't come to Jesus and say, please, Lord, forgive me. He just went back to fishing because he thought the relationship was over. But Jesus forgave him even though Peter didn't ask for it. And there maybe has not been a greater preacher of the gospel other than maybe the Apostle Paul than Peter, who preached on the day of Pentecost and 3,000 people got saved. And this is all a byproduct of Jesus forgave Peter before Peter ever asked for forgiveness. And so what forgiveness does is it frees us to love. Now, Jesus is perfect. He's not going to sin. But what we do is, people harm us and we hold grudges against them. And that relationship will never be restored as long as you have bitterness in your heart towards an individual. If you refuse to forgive, there will not be restoration. But what did Joseph do? Joseph, I believe, he's riding the caravan on the way to Egypt, and I believe he prayed and forgave his brothers. I forgive my brothers for what they have done to me. Because he does do such a good job in Egypt, and that is not the product of a guy who had bitterness in his heart. So he has forgiven them, and then when he sees them again, he's like, man, these are my brothers. I'd love to have a relationship with them, but I got to see whether or not they're really changed men. And that's a really important part. Just because somebody desires a relationship with you doesn't mean that you should have one. In particular, if you've been in a very toxic relationship and somebody's been abusive to you, I mean, there needs to be proof that there is change. Just because somebody comes and says, I'm sorry, but is there validation? Are they really changed individuals? And the brothers proved it, so it's like, hey, I've forgiven them a long time ago. They're different guys. We're free to have a relationship again. And that's what forgiveness does. That's the benefit of it. Not every relationship in your life is going to be restored, but you sure don't want to prevent one that could have been because you refused to forgive. So that's the first thing we see from the text. Forgiveness frees us to love. The second benefit or positive of forgiveness is forgiveness empowers us to see the bigger picture. Forgiveness empowers us to see the bigger picture. Joseph calls his brothers, says, come near to me. He says, I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. What's that called? That's called perspective. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I cannot stand it when I get things in my eyes. Years ago in college, when I worked my way through school, I worked at a place called Dominic's Finer Foods. It was up by O'Hare Airport. Karen and I lived in Cherville, Indiana. We had an hour drive. And so I worked with a friend who's actually a pastor now in Baltimore, and we would carpool together. One day I'm up there, and I filled orders for grocery stores. And so you had a lot of pallets of product. At the top of most of the pallets was a fine thing of cardboard. And I took it one day and grabbed it, and it caught this left eye, like it scraped my left eye. And man, I like to lost my mind. So my wife was an hour away. She was actually working. I called her, told her to get off work and come pick me up. So she left work, came pick me up, took me to the eye doctor. I wore a patch for like 5 days. It drove me nuts. And recently I've had some issues with this left eye. I feel like I have an eyelash that's rubbing up against or touching the eye. So it's been like this for like a month, and it's driving me nuts. It's probably why I'm sick now, because I keep touching my eye. You know, I shake your hand and touch my eye. That's bad. You shouldn't do that. So I just went to the eye doctor recently. My daughter works for an eye doctor, and so I went there and had him look at my eye. And man, it made, like, he took my eyelid and pulled it back. I was incredibly uncomfortable with that. Like, he's like, you don't like that, do you? And I'm like, I don't like that at all, man. Please don't ever do that again. He's like, well, I can't find anything wrong with your eye. He goes, there's a little spot. I'll give you some eye drops, but it's still kind of bothering me a little bit. And it's just driving me nuts. And you just think about it all the time. And I want it to go away. And what's that got to do with this, Mark? Well, I'm not sure. No. I actually do know what it has to do with this. When you have unforgiveness in your heart, it affects your spiritual vision. And you don't have perspective. You lose perspective. Joseph was able to forgive. We know that he forgave, and it helped him with his perspective. Notice his speech he keeps saying over and over again. He's like, yes, these were bad things that happened to me, but God allowed them to get me to this place where I could interpret a dream so that I could save the world. But what that takes a tremendous amount of perspective when the bad things happen to you in life. So what that tells me about Joseph is when he was sold into slavery and he's riding that caravan back to Egypt, or on his way to Egypt, He's already saying, I don't know why this is happening, but God has allowed this, and so there must be something he wants me to do in Egypt. So his vision, his spiritual vision is not blurred. He's got nothing in his eyes because he can see this bigger picture. When you have unforgiveness in your heart, your mind is dominated by how you've been wronged, and that's all you can think about. This person harmed me. I can't believe they would do this to me. And it just dominates your mind. Whereas if you have a new perspective, or if you have the eyes of Christ, if you have a different perspective, you're like, okay, this is a really bad thing. I don't understand why this happened, but God must have something he wants for me in Egypt. When he gets falsely accused and he ends up in jail, he had to have this perspective of, this is not right, but God must want me here for a reason. When the butler and the baker forgot about him, he had to think, God must be waiting for the right time. It's easy for him to look back and go, look at all that God did, but we have to look forward that way. And that's what forgiveness does. So somebody wrongs us and it makes our life difficult, or we lose our job, or we just have we're in a difficult spot. We have to say, okay, I don't understand why this happened, but I'm not going to let unforgiveness cloud my vision that God is doing something in my life. So Joseph teaches us that forgiveness empowers us to see the bigger picture. The third thing I want you to notice is that forgiveness, this is the third benefit of forgiveness, forgiveness draws us close to God. Forgiveness draws us close to God. Nobody wants to hear this, but this is the truth. We don't talk to God as much when life is good as when life is bad. When life's good, a lot of times we forget him. Look, the bills are paid, I'm healthy, my family's healthy, everything's good. And so we oftentimes tend to think, man, I'm killing it, doing a good job here. Then you have these things happen to you that are totally outside of your control, and they bring you great pain, and what does it do? It causes you to look up. God, why? Why? Why did this happen to me? So forgiveness draws us close to God. And when you have been wronged, you look to God for reasons and guidance. And I believe that's what Joseph did. See, if you have been wronged, you can just focus on the wrong, or you can pick your eyes above what that person has done to you and get your eyes on God. And what does God tell us to do when it comes to forgiveness? God says to forgive as we have been forgiven. So we're supposed to forgive. And if I can encourage you this way, you are never more like God than when you forgive. You're never more like God than when you forgive. Think of all that God has done to forgive you. So when you forgive, you're like God. You're doing what God does. He forgives. So we have 3 kids, and it's just neat to watch them grow up and grow older. And I just say that there's times where they do things, and it really makes me proud. They show character, they work hard, or they do something like that. And inside I'm like, that's my boy, or that's my girl. And every parent in the room understands what I'm talking about. When you forgive, God in a sense goes, that's my boy. It draws us close to God. And Joseph forgave, and this brought him intimacy with God. So this is the benefit of forgiveness. This is why you should forgive. Because the opposite of that is, God is not near to those who have resentment, bitterness, anger, hatred in their heart. Let me just read what Paul wrote about this. He says in Colossians 3, Put on then as God's chosen, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other as God has forgiven you, so you must also forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. So when I forgive, I'm choosing to live like God and love like God. And this draws me closer to God. Doesn't save us, it just makes us tighter. Just makes the relationship better. Number 4, the fourth thing we notice in the text is forgiveness allows us to reach our potential. Forgiveness allows us to reach our potential. It is quite interesting getting to the age where I'm at because, you know that in a lot of ways, your potential is gone. I mean, physically. Did y'all watch the Tyson fight? The Tyson, Okay, now, he would kill me, but he's 58 years old, fighting a 20-something-year-old kid. You could see a dramatic difference. One just moves quicker. One's got the speed of the legs. They're just different, And as much as Mike tried, that's not the Mike that I remember. From his youth, when he was young, he was a brutal, brutal man who I would not want to fight. So I'm in my 50s too. Did I tell you the other day that I had my first senior meal? Did I tell you guys that? Yeah. I went to Perkins with a guy in the church, and I haven't been to Perkins in a long time, and I was going through the menu, and on the back it said 55 and older. I don't care if it saves me $2. Let's go. The problem with that I have is the portion sizes are too small. Let's up these portion sizes. So anyway, but it was funny, man. It's like, and I got to tell you, the guy gave me the greatest compliment because I was sitting with an older gentleman, and I said, hey, I'm on this group here, and I'd like to order from this part. And he goes, whatever, dude, but I'll play your game. So I said, I can show you my license, man. June 10th, 1969, I'm 55 years old, So it's like, I don't know you, but you're my best friend. Why did I bring that up? Well, once again, I have no idea. But no. I brought that up because we all have potential, like not just physically. As we age, physical potential drops. But we can keep maturing. Like, I will never reach spiritual maturity to the point where it's like, you know what, me and Jesus, man, we're like, he's here and I'm here. I mean, I've got a long way. In fact, the closer I get to Jesus, the more I realize how far I have to go. But I can keep going. My potential will be in my new body when I'm like Christ, but I don't ever want to settle for not being all that I can be for God down here. But I will tell you right now that if you have unforgiveness in your heart, it's going to stunt your growth spiritually, and frankly, it's going to stunt a lot of your other growth as well. You will never reach the potential that you could reach if you have unforgiveness in your heart. I'm talking occupationally. Many of you work secular jobs and even if you work a spiritual job, there's this myth that it's just like we all work together in a church and we're all a bunch of holy people. And you know what Jeff is? Jeff's a sinner. I mean, I'm not calling Jeff out. I'm just saying Jeff. But Nathan's a sinner too, and Grant's a sinner, and Joe is for sure a sinner. And I don't know if Joe's in here. Oh, good. I can talk about him when he's not in here. The point is, like, there's tension there. Sometimes we do things to offend each other. And so we have to forgive. And if I am just constantly living in this world of anger towards all the people that I work with because I can't believe that guy said that about me or stabbed me in the back, then I'll never reach the potential that I could reach because I'm stuck where I'm at. So I'm going to tell you right now, if Joseph does not forgive his brothers, he never becomes second in command in Egypt because his motives are all wrong. Have you ever worked with somebody that's just angry at the world? Okay, how fast do they climb the corporate ladder? Now, if you got some examples, I guess you can point them out later. But most of the time, it's like people that have a goal, they have a vision, they understand that this is part of the business, but they're going to forgive those that have done them wrong. They're not going to live in their motivation is not hate and anger and bitterness and resentment. It's more a purpose. And if I have unforgiveness, that will be my motivation. And so it stunts my potential because I'm stuck in the past. It does it relationally. Everybody close to you at some point is going to hurt you. I had a wedding yesterday, and I say the same thing at every wedding. I said, look, you have to understand, you're a sinner. This is a terrible thing to say at people's weddings, but you're a sinner, and you're a sinner. This is not going to make for a perfect marriage. There's going to be difficulties. And what we have to do is we have to forgive one another. Like, I want to die with my wife happy with me. I want to die closer to my wife than I was 34 years ago when we made our commitment to one another. I don't want to just tolerate her. Because I'm telling you, as somebody that does a lot of funerals, you can tell those who miss the one that's in the casket and those who are glad they're gone. It's like, well, I don't want my marriage verse to be, those that endure to the end shall be saved. So what does that entail? A lot of forgiveness, man. A lot of forgiveness. And so if I want to reach my potential as what my marriage could be, that requires both Karen and I forgiving each other a lot. If I want to reach my potential occupationally, I can't live in bitterness and resentment and anger towards those who have wronged me at my job. I must forgive and keep moving forward. I guess the question you should ask yourself often is, what is your motivation? What's your motivation? What drives you? Why are you doing what you're doing? You ever watch somebody on an athletic field and you see these guys, they're competing against each other or gals, and they do little things to get under their skin? And why are they doing that? Because they want that person to overreact. Because if that person is doing stuff in anger, they're going to mess up the whole team. So motivation that's driven by hate, bitterness, resentment, anger is not going to produce positive results. So instead, I want to be driven by love. I'm doing this because I love you, and I want what's best for you, and I want to help you, and I want to be an asset to you. This is going to help us reach our potential. But if we're just driven because we want to prove somebody wrong, that's an empty bitterness. That's an empty thing to pursue. People get jealous of you. They say really bad things. They say really negative things. Don't forgive them. And Joseph was able to become second in command because he forgave his brothers, he forgave Potiphar's wife, he forgave the butler and the baker, he forgave those that forgot him. He just kept looking forward because God's up to something. And he did this in his 20s. So we get hurt in our youth. Let's not let the hurt that we experience in our youth become the driving force for the rest of our lives. Let's instead live our lives because we love God and love others, okay? Number 5, why should we forgive? Because forgiveness prepares us for the future. Forgiveness prepares us for the future. There's a guy on YouTube called, it's Knees Over Toes guy. Y'all ever heard of him? You know what I'm talking about? Oh, good, one guy. Well, I've always had issues with my knees, so he has a couple of exercises that he recommends doing. One of those is to walk backwards for 10 minutes? Have you ever tried that? One, people look at you like, are you an idiot? Like, so I go to cemeteries and walk backwards in the cemeteries because, if you're in a cemetery walking, you're weird anyway. So if you're walking backwards, it's just like, that's hard. You know what's hard to do too? It's hard to walk forward with always looking back. You ever tried to walk forward and always look back? You're going to walk into walls. We don't do things well when we're not focused on what we're doing. And what happened with Joseph is, Joseph, because he had dealt with the past, this is what Paul was talking about when he says, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forth to those things which are before, I press towards the mark. So I'm not looking back with bitterness and resentment and anger. I'm looking forward with hope. So when I forgive, it allows me to look forward with hope. I will not be ready for what is coming if I'm always looking back. Because Joseph forgave, he was able to think logically and prepare for what was coming because he forgave. And because he was forward thinking, not backward driven, he was able to provide not only for the whole world, but specifically for his own family. This is why you should forgive. It's just a better life, man. And I know everything in us, when people wrong us, want to hold it in. We want to be angry. That's the flesh. That's self. But what's the better way? Forgiveness. Forgiveness is the better way because it frees us to love. It empowers us to see the bigger picture. It draws us close to God. It allows us to reach our potential, and it prepares us for the future. All of us have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And I can spend my entire life looking back at all the mistakes that I've made and all the sins that I've done. But what does Jesus say? Come to me, all you are labor and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. I'll forgive you. So maybe you can't forgive others because you've never experienced the forgiveness of God yourself. Have you ever acknowledged your sins? Have you ever put your faith and trust in Jesus Christ? Today would be a great day to do that. You don't need to carry that guilt anymore. You don't need to carry that regret anymore. You don't need to live in the past, but you can live with hope for the future because of what Jesus has done. And are you saved and have you experienced the forgiveness of God, but are you holding on to the bitterness because somebody did you wrong? Just as you have been forgiven by Christ, let us be free to give it out. I really want God to be in heaven going, that's my boy. That's my boy. What did he say about Jesus? This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And how do we get that kind of statement from Christ? I forgive you. I forgive you. God says to us, I forgive you. We say to others, I forgive you. And it just makes for a better life. And I want to live a better life, don't you? Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Have you put your faith and trust in Christ? Do you know him as your Lord and Savior? Have you acknowledged your sins and asked him to save you? If you've not done that, I want to encourage you to do that today. You pray a simple prayer like this. Jesus, I know I'm a sinner. And I know I've done a lot of bad stuff. But I thank you for coming to this earth and taking the punishment for that bad stuff that I deserve. Please forgive me of my sins and come in my life. I believe in you. Thank you for saving me. Who is it that is keeping you stuck in the past? Who is it that you need to forgive? Is it a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister, a friend, a pastor, a neighbor, a boss, a coworker, an ex-spouse, a kid, a child of yours. While we can't do it in ourselves, God can help us. So would you just right now, would you just pray where you are? God, I forgive blank. Help me to forgive. I can't do this myself. Lord, you have been so kind to us. I think even now, I've been following you for a long time. 46 years. I've been in your family, and I know that every day I do things that you don't want me to do. I think things you don't want me to think. I say things that I shouldn't say. And I do often allow anger and bitterness in my heart towards people. Lord, I am grateful that you forgive me over and over and over and over again. Thank you that your mercies are new every morning and your grace is unconditional and unlimited. Lord, would you help us to be the same? Help us not to be driven by the past. Lord, help us to forgive and free ourselves from all of the hate and bitterness and anger that drives us. May we be people of joy with our eyes on you. Thank you for helping us do the impossible. We pray it in your name, Jesus. Amen.